know that this is going to be a great conversation, and I think that the subject is so timely, something that I've been very interested in. So I think we'll have a really good time and learn a lot of things. So my name is Angela Kersenbrock, and I'm the president of the Community College Baccalaureate Association. And I've been the president for 5 years. So I've had 30 plus years experience at the community colleges, working in all the workforce programs, developing programs and leading programs. And when I became the CCBA president, this is all going to tie in, just bear with me. When I became the CCBA president, the first thing I did was go around different states and talk to colleges about what CCBA could do, could help them with, and what kinds of problems they were having. And they said, find sponsors or people to partner with that can help solve some of our challenges. And the challenge that I heard over and over and over again was textbook affordability. And then we met BibliU. So today we're doing a webinar with our friends from BibliU, who've been a sponsor with us for several years now. And they've become, really good friends and good people. So I'd like to introduce you to the BibliU people that we have here today. Ginny, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks so much, Angela. I appreciate it. My name's Ginny Connors. I'm a senior account exec with BibliU. I've been here a few years now. Live outside of Chicago in the northwest suburbs. Excited to be here today. Thanks for having us.
Ginny, thank you for being here. John?
Hi there. Thank you, Angela. Excuse me. John Holdcroft, Associate Vice President at BibliU. I live in Seattle, Washington. I've been lucky enough to join 2 of these conferences the past 2 springs. So very much looking forward to another event as well as this webinar today. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Oh, thank you. Carli?
Hey everyone, I'm Carli Tegtmeier. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for BibliU. I've been working with academia since about 2012, which doesn't sound like that long, but it feels like forever. Very much aligned to, my personal mission and what we do here. Strong focus on the technology side. So looking forward to the conversation today.
And Darren?
Yes, Darren Croom. I'm the Chief Business Officer with BibliU. I've been in the campus store industry for about 32 years now, and just really excited to engage in the conversation, be with you today, and talk about how the store has really moved, the campus store has moved over the years. I think it'll be a great conversation.
Great. And Cheryl?
Hi, I'm Cheryl Cicotti. I am the program manager for the Community College Baccalaureate Association, obviously better known as CCBA. I have about 30 years in higher education and specifically community colleges. And my expertise has been in nursing. I was the Dean of Nursing at Seminole State and then an AVP over the workforce program. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. So most of you know about CCBA, that we support colleges and states as they think about, pursue, develop, and implement baccalaureate degrees. And those baccalaureate degrees are workforce focused. And the demographic of the students is usually a working adult, so about 30 plus years old. So those are the students who have multiple priorities. And I'm going to always ask Cheryl to check me on this because Cheryl's experience is very recent. So Cheryl, if I say something that, oh, no, that's not the way it is anymore. Nobody is using a BlackBerry. Make sure you tell me on that. And so that is why BibliU is such a strategic partner with CCBA, because they hit that need. Cheryl, do you want to explain a little bit more about the CCB student?
Certainly. So what CCBA's vision is that we want to be able to have every student in the community have direct and equitable access to these high value, high quality baccalaureate degrees. So the key to this is access, affordability, and convenience. And so when we look at our CCBA students, over 50% of them are females. Most all are working, and most have families, many of them single families. So that is a different demographic than you see with the traditional university student. So the partnership that we have with BibliU is remarkable because it is hitting the students at their need. And what I mean by that is instant access and affordability.
Right. So there is no, we talk about accessibility a lot with CCBA, and we say CCBs bring, they provide accessibility, but without affordability, there really isn't true accessibility. Now, I heard something from a faculty member, Cheryl, and I want to have you test me on this. I asked her, I said, what percentage of your students have their books day one? And her response was about 35%.
I agree with that. And I would say 35% is a very optimistic number. There's always holdups in financial aid. There are students that don't qualify for financial aid or simply don't have the time to go and get their books. I can tell you that as a dean for many, many years, I had to put copies of books in the library for students that never could afford a book.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't actually have the time to even go to the library. So, they were at a disadvantage to start the course. And, that's not who we are in community colleges. We want those students to succeed. So this instant access is crucial. Interesting, Angela, we had lunch recently with a community college student services vice president. And I asked him, how many students now are online? And he said 50% of the college's students are now online at that school. So again, here's another type of convenience that these students need, is that type of book where they can have instant access and be able to afford it.
Thank you, Cheryl. Could somebody from the BibliU team talk about this universal day one access?
Yeah, Carli, you want to kick with that?
Yeah, did we want to kick off with the evolution of bookstores first?
Well, we do, but I want to make sure that people understand what we're talking about, say day one access. If there's more to it than just that.
Ginny, do you want to hop in about our universal learning product?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you. We believe that student success is driven from day one access of course materials. And for that to happen, Cheryl, as you just said, they need to be affordable. And we believe they need to be accessible. So we have a variety of product offerings that we can do that are either platform driven or content driven from a pricing standpoint, but all of them ensure that students are able to get their content on day one so that it's a day one access in an affordable way. We talk about universal learning, which is an equitable access model, but we also do inclusive access because we believe to the point, and this is something near and dear to me, is that we want all students to have access to their content on day one, regardless of their ability to pay. So we have a soft spot for those financial aid students, and we want to make Pell Grants, scholarships, loans, things like that more readily applicable to the content costs and not have course material costs be something that sit outside of that where they're having to try to figure out how to pay for it.
Well, thank you. That's really good because I think in the old days we used to hear, oh, the faculty really don't do anything day one or the first week of school. It's just a time to kind of go through the outline. And that's not true anymore. I know they hit the ground running. And so that day one access is really
huge.
It is.
And
I would also tell you, Cheryl, your 35% number, our data supports that and is spot on. I frequently talk to colleges and I say 65% of your students do not have their course materials because they were unaffordable.
65%. I agree with you. And I think that, what you're seeing then is we start these students at a disadvantage. They have got to be ready that first day. Otherwise, students that don't have their books 3 and 4 weeks into the course, they are doomed.
Yep.
Now the books.
Amen.
The bookstores have changed over the years, Carli and Darren, and I was wondering if you could kind of talk about how bookstores have evolved and what changes you've seen in bookstores.
Yeah, I'll take that one. The campus store, I think, has traditionally been a hub of the campus community, and every new semester start, new merchandise, new course materials, and it was sort of the meeting place of campus during the first week of classes. That's what you would do. And I think stores have always had a mission for service and to ideally be a place of affordability and a repository for all things course material related for students to be successful at the start of class. And today stores continue to provide the service elements, but the products offerings to meet those service elements have changed, especially in the affordability side. You know, affordability options that once used to be comprised of used books or loose leaf or rental is really no longer the case. Everything has really moved to that digital environment. And I think some stores have really struggled in a way to be an expert in the digital realm. And even if they have the technical know-how, I think being part of the larger college mission to drive affordability and to find a way to contribute to student success and engagement, and being sure that they let faculty know about all the different options that are out there in the digital realm to provide those tools has been a challenge for some folks. You know, no longer is it good enough for a store really to just get the book adoption and order products and put things out there, but they must find a way to ensure that they are part of that success element for a student. And the traditional model doesn't always make it automatic and simple and seamless for students. And really the new charge of the bookstore in a new age is to make it as simple as possible, to be a repository for all things needed, and really to guide faculty in that digital realm to make it easy and simple throughout the student experience from the point of registration to the point of start of classes. Carli?
Yeah, if I can piggyback on that, Darren, I think it's so interesting because we've all known that there's been this shift to digital and then it's coming, right? And I have 4 kids, 3 in middle school, 1 in elementary. And I remember school shopping on the first day. I'm like, oh, we need like book protectors.
Right.
They're like, huh? What is that? You know, and every single one of them, they're on their Chromebook and we just don't look at textbooks. So then they go from that into this college experience that is heavy print. And then the question is, are we really preparing them for that, you know, that digital future of the jobs that they're going to be having as well? And so, you know, Cheryl, to your point of the demographic that we're serving, we need to meet them where they are. And I think one of the challenges with the digital moving as quickly as we all think that it should and could is actually the disconnect between faculty and students. You know, some of the research data shows that about 50% of faculty are on board with digital, whereas like 75% of students prefer digital. But our data shows that in a model where you do a full institution-wide digital first rollout, only 5 to 7% of students are actually opting out of that. So I think we have to really step back and say, what is the demand? What is the priority here about getting student access to materials? Because it does go beyond just access and affordability. And to Darren's point, this is a student success conversation. This is about retention. This is about the meeting those outcomes and the grades. And when you're in a digital environment, yes, getting them access day one, that's going to make a huge difference. But what about all of the data that we're able to gather in a digital environment that can help students retain? Are they going through that content? You know, where can we flag when students are not accessing their reading materials? When do we need to jump in and help them? And those are questions that we can't really answer when we're utilizing print materials because we just don't know. So digital does provide this massive opportunity to even better serve our students when it comes to student success.
Well, Darren and Carli, you've really put a different spin. You've presented the bookstore in really a different light, or this whole book resource in a different light. Because I don't know if I've really ever thought about the bookstore is really a partner in this whole student success initiative. And the resources that you bring to that table, it's almost as though in all of our leadership meetings at colleges, the bookstore needs to be there, or BibliU needs to be there to talk about what resources you can provide the faculty to let them know about the learning that's taken place, and also for the students, what resources you can provide for them. So that's really an interesting concept that I hadn't really considered before. And I'm sure you're saying, oh, that's just because she's old school. I think, you know, as faculty members, we get so caught up in making sure that all this is filled out and complete, and, you know, all the other mandates that we have going on anymore, that this is really a great way of looking at that. So I think that that's really wonderful. So what about, I know bookstores were revenue generating organizations for colleges as well. So with the high cost of books and changing student behaviors. How does that impact you all? And how does it enable you to contribute to the success of the students in an even more significant way?
Darren, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I think so. I think for stores to really understand and just campuses to understand, making sure that there are materials in the hands of students to be able to consume on that day one, to your point, is key. No longer is there a first week of syllabus week. And so having 100% market share, if you will, on the revenue side is key, but really driving that affordability to the point that everybody is engaged and on the same page. Everybody has the same material. It is the most affordable option in that digital world for all students, not just a portion, not just somebody who went onto Amazon and got a deal on a print book. It's driving that affordability for all students, and really being able to have everybody on that page allows for better engagement, allows for students to immediately begin that success path rather than trying to work into it over the first couple of weeks of a class. As Carli talked about, sharing that digital data also allows faculty members and everybody to be engaged in that student success from the get-go and not having to look at it in a backward looking from a grade standpoint, but being able to provide it from the front side of that. And the affordability really becomes the larger driver. The revenue comes for a campus community, but really that affordability piece needs to be the first driver because you'll get all of that campus buy-in.
And
I think I would add to that in terms of revenue producing. The revenue might just come from different sources with performance funding that many states have now. Because the better the student outcomes are, the better the performance funding is. I think I took the words right out of your mouth, Angela.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking, well, the colleges may lose here, but they're going to gain here.
Totally. Yeah.
That's an astute president who pulls all those pieces together. You know, our friend Dan Phelan is pretty wise. And so I think that's really interesting. Well, thank you. You know, I was thinking about another thing that one of our partners said, I think it might have been John, when we first talked to you, John, about being a partner with us. You said, well, we want to be part of the crucial conversations. We want to be part of the solutions. And you're clearly illustrating how BibliU is part of that solution for student success. So I like that. That's great. So we've talked a little bit about BibliU's universal learning solution. Could you kind of tie that into what BibliU's been doing for all these years, how you've evolved to this universal solution?
Can I grab that one?
Yes, Ginny.
Okay. So as Carli and Darren have both said, and I started out with as well, you know, BibliU from day one, over 13 years ago, was created and exists today to create and support student success. That is what we do. It is really, really where we're grounded. And the way we think that happens, of course, we've been talking about ensuring our students have everything that they need on day one to be successful. And for that to happen, we're back to affordability and easily accessible. And this was the dream of our CEO, Dave Sherwood, who is our founder. He was a student at Oxford. He is from Perth, Western Australia. And he started BibliU 13 years ago to create kind of a Spotify type experience for course materials. And we have really grown from there as a startup in the UK with a handful of customers. We have grown in both the UK and in the US. We have hundreds of customers. We have over 2 million students who access the BibliU platform. We have many, many publisher relationships, access to millions of titles of content. And a fun fact I love to share is we provide all of the digital content for University of Phoenix, who alone has 100,000 users. So I think I always am amazed by that. For a small little company years ago to have gotten to that point is super exciting. The other thing that I would share is last year we acquired Texas Book Company, because what we were really endeavoring to do is to kind of provide a full end-to-end integration for our customers. Today, not only do we have our own e-reader, but we also have all the publisher relationships. We can run bookstores for our customers, and we can really hit all the buttons required of being a really strong vendor partner. We have the ability to offer, as I was talking about before when you asked me about kind of how does universal learning work, We can do itemized content pricing. We can do normalized platform pricing. The point being, we consider ourselves to be very agile and very responsive to what our customers need and what they want. And the end result really, I believe it drives student success. And again, that's really what our mission has always been. It drives persistence, it drives retention, and ultimately graduation or completion from whatever kind of program a student has a goal of completing. And we get to do it in partnering with these students. They get to save money, and it does maximize the return to the institution as well. So it's kind of a win-win-win if you check all the buckets. So kind of a long answer, but we've had a lot going on in the last 13 years, and we're very excited and proud of it.
Yeah, no, it's all the little cranes in my head are moving around.
Mine too.
Yeah, I think the student in the community college is a student who needs these kinds of resources more than any other student. You know, our students are like driving in at 5 o'clock for class, or they're getting in front of the computer after everybody goes to bed. They don't even have time to go to the bookstore or the library to get the materials that they need. And again, this driving student completions that you spoke about, Ginny,
That's
is
the
so
huge
critical, because, you know, all the data shows some college is not very valuable. You know, I don't want to say
finish.
is not valuable, but in terms of salaries and economic output, economic gift, it's not as important as completing a certificate, a degree, and a bachelor's degree, which is what we're all about. Getting students to that point. So this is really, I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I really thought I knew so much about BibliU, but I'm learning even more today. And I hope my friends who are out there are learning. So the person who introduced us to you is Dan Phelan from Jackson College in Michigan. And he spoke so highly, and he was particularly focused on the outcomes that you all had, that they had rather, using BibliU. So I'm wondering, what challenges was Jackson College facing? How did you help them? Why did they decide to partner with you? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so
John, is that you?
it is. Sorry to speak over you, Angela, but yeah, I was lucky enough to be present for the partnership with Jackson. And as Angela alluded to, for those on the call who've been a part of CCBA for a while, Dr. Dan Phelan has been a past board member at CCBA, and he's the president of Jackson College. So BibliU got connected to their COO, Cindy Allen, on a webinar very similar to this. It was actually fall of 2020. I remember it well because everybody was home and doing virtual meetings. We all remember that as the only way we communicated. And we talked about what we do in our business model. Jackson College is a college just west of Detroit. A lot of the students feed into the University of Michigan. Some go to Michigan State. Many are workforce getting accreditation, other degrees, certifications, a huge nursing program as well. And their president, Dan, and his COO, Cindy, said, we need to rethink just about everything in how we serve students, and not just to do what's best for them, but also to be competitive with other community colleges in the area, as you folks that are a part of this association are looking at your baccalaureate programs of ways of competing with other schools, whether they're 4-year or other 2-year schools. So they looked at almost everything. They started housing programs, childcare programs. And again, these were going before the pandemic, but the pandemic really made them kind of tighten their strategy around it. Food pantry issues, a lot of the things that community college students might be thinking about more than those that are privileged enough to go to a 4-year school. And then the other thing that we do that they thought spoke well to their strategy is the bookstore. The bookstore, obviously during the pandemic, was closed and silent, and students could not get books. They looked at this, and they looked at all their commuter students. Angela and Cheryl, you mentioned that these students that go to these schools, they're often doing a job on one side of the town, maybe as a nurse's assistant as they get their associate's degree in nursing. They're not going to pop by the bookstore in between classes. They may be taking virtual classes. They may not be able to go to school. They may have to pick up their students. So he said, what can we do to make content more available? And as Carli mentioned this, available to everybody on day one. And whatever you call the goal to make everybody ready and equal on day one, and there's lots of words out there, equity is one of them. The president said, it's our responsibility. It's not just a good idea, it's our obligation to have everybody ready on day one. And so BibliU and our proposal allowed students all to access, all students to have that book on day one, and it's available right there. Other initiatives that Jackson is looking at that we are thinking about working on as well is making content available for imprisoned students and incarcerated students. Jackson serves 7 different area prisons, and while we're not there yet, the idea of providing a digital copy for students there is an exciting opportunity as well. So what Cindy did in this instance was the COO, they had Follett, their current provider. And again, think about a partnership that was probably signed 20 years ago. It probably was a good idea at the time as a brick and mortar store, but it really no longer served them. And she and Dan got together and we talked about what we can do and the costs that we provided for all students. It was one cost per book for all students. And that checked this gigantic box for Dan and Cindy and everybody there at Jackson. Again, it's not going to solve every problem, but having all students ready, not just the ones that are wealthy, organized, have parents that are helping them, but all students is just a great equalizer that I think everybody on the call is trying to work towards. So that's the main story of Jackson that we're really excited about. And I believe we have more information around a case study. And Angela, I don't know if you're supposed to ask me the next question or I flow to that. So I'll stop talking.
Why don't you talk about the case study?
Thank you. We did a case study with their director of institutional effectiveness at Jackson. And the goal was to really say, okay, BibliU, checks the box around cost, around getting students books, but is it helping our students learn? Is it helping our students succeed and go on from term to term and year to year? And we were really thrilled. The data, and we can share this in depth if anybody would like to see this anymore. The data showed that, yes, it was not only helping students stay enrolled and stay with their programs and their majors and their accreditations and their certifications, but it also helped with their GPA as well. I'm not going to talk about every of these items that we're showing here, but I want to focus on the second to the left, which is the 3.4 GPA. So, and again, we've got details around this. If anybody would like to do the research, I know some of you get into statistics quite deeply, and we can provide that. The main point here is the people that use BibliU the least, the average grade at Jackson before BibliU was implemented was a 2.4. The people that use BibliU the most got up to a 3.4 grade average. So I can't say that everybody that uses BibliU will always have a letter grade better, but you can see there is clear data that shows higher usage with BibliU is at Jackson College, creating at least a letter up to a letter grade improvement in what they were doing. So if we all had a lever to pull a letter grade improvement, we'd like to pull that today, tomorrow, and every day afterwards. And I know that a lot of the schools here are doing that. The other thing I want to refer to is retention. So at Jackson College, I think they told me it was like $900 per student to recruit and like $1,300 per student to retain. If they can do anything in any lever in any partnership that helps that number, that is a huge win, not just for the percentages, but honestly for the students to actually stay in their program. Everybody has that goal. So at BibliU, when they began to use us, they noticed up to a 15% increase in retention to 77% at its highest. That number was about at 62% for fall of 2018. In some cohorts, it was less, but we saw at minimum 5% increase in retention and up to 15%. So again, there are many factors in how schools retain students. You guys that work on these baccalaureate programs are working on many of these as well by offering more degrees and more programs. But at BibliU, we're working with Jackson and having some real data around how we're actually helping students stay in school and be retained and moving forward to the next part of their degree. So those are the main parts about the Jackson study. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, so I was just thinking about this, when I was a program director and a dean and an AVP, retention is really the name of the game. semester to semester retention, year to year retention. I mean, that's critical, particularly Florida, Arizona, Texas, I think, are all performance-based funding. Not all, but, have a component of their funding that's driven by performance. And these are things that are being measured. So, Cheryl, is that still true? Are you still seeing that?
It is true. And I would add to that just the savings in the colleges by the funding that you don't have to put into retention efforts goes to other student success efforts. And this, truly, the students love digital resources.
Yeah.
So you can see this here. Once they were given those opportunities, you can see they're ready to fly. And I think that these are the outcomes that we as educators look for. And it's shown in this, and it's a large number of students. This isn't a small sample. So that makes it even more impressive.
Yeah, I think that's great. The other thing I was thinking, John, when you were speaking, because you said cohort, I wasn't thinking a BibliU cohort, but in nursing, when you have a cohort, or automotive, when you have a cohort, or cybersecurity, any of the other PTA, actually, when you have a cohort and you lose a student, you've lost that place forever, right? It's not like you just go pull somebody out and they can walk in the middle of a program. So that really hurts. So if you bring in 35 students or 34 students, you lose 4 or 5 students, they never come back. They don't graduate. They may go back to a different program, but that's another major challenge for our colleges.
And these programs, their accreditations look at those types of things, which is another very important aspect of a quality program.
Oh, the accreditations. Very good.
Yeah, you mentioned, Angela, the frustration of people that take some college and don't do anything with it. It's such a frustrating thing for students and for people in your guys' position that are serving the institutions as well. I cover the West Coast schools, and there's lots of Hispanic serving institutions. There's all sorts of programs around, first generation students, Pell Grant students, Puente programs, all these different cohorts. Everybody wants everyone to succeed, but these specific cohorts, BibliU is a great tool. And as Carli mentioned, and for those of you on the call, we can help you measure and track your students in real time. This is a big differentiator between digital and print. So imagine the best of teachers. So Angela probably taught nursing, and Cheryl may have as well. The best of teachers probably do this by show of hands: who read the book, who didn't read the book. We know that not everybody can do that and everybody has time, but imagine walking in as a teacher, a nurse teacher, the nursing faculty, whomever it is, and knowing, did John read the material yesterday? Did Ginny read the material yesterday? Do we have outreach? At Jackson College, they call them navigators. Can we do some outreach and help John be more prepared? Because we see he's at the bottom 10% of reading and engaging with the content. You can't do that with print. You can do that informally, but a lot of people don't want to self-identify with struggling with that. Who wants to admit, yep, I don't read the chapter, but yet those people still need help. And with BibliU, you can do outreach through college success, through these different initiatives. At Jackson, they call them the navigators. You folks on the call have different groups like this that are trying to solve this. BibliU is an additional tool that lets you do that on a course level, at an institution level as well. And it is one of the big differentiators. And it's really just what all of us are trying to do. And we just need a few tools to help do that. So BibliU is one of those tools in this conversation.
You really feed into the whole learning analytics and student performance analytics to help faculty and the other wraparound services intervene with students. I know they don't like calling it intrusive advising. It's sort of we'll call it assertive advising, where they're calling students. I know we had some of that too, Cheryl, calling students, hey, you're not reading, you're not catching up, you haven't done the work.
And I think you can personalize the study habits for these students, these at-risk students, that personalized data that you can show them. This is why you were not successful. This is what I want you to do. And that's wonderful for the students. And what an aid for faculty.
Yeah.
Amazing.
The other, one more thing I'll say about some of the data and learning analytics is that it helps colleges identify growing programs. So let's just say, in fact, Jackson College, I believe they have a culinary program and one around ELT. I know for a fact they're like, where do we invest more in this? And if they look at some of the BibliU reading metrics, you might see some courses there where there is high engagement. Well, that might be an opportunity to have a baccalaureate program. And maybe if you're thinking about other programs and you see very low engagement, well, is there that interest? And again, our reading analytics and learning analytics can inform schools, not just at the student level, but at that high level. What areas are we getting a lot of engagement on? And is that areas that we should invest in a baccalaureate program or expanded content and curriculum?
Well, that's another use I hadn't thought about. This has been really great content. And I think
Angela, can I go off script for a second?
go off script.
Because I'm sitting here like thinking, if I'm a participant in this meeting, I'm like getting all this great, this webinar, getting all this great information. I'm almost like a little overwhelmed. Like, okay, we need to do this, but where do we start, right? How do we actually go about doing something like this? And I wanted to just kind of tie everything back together of like, okay, we know there's declining revenue at the bookstore. We know we need to move to digital. How do we go about doing this? And I think, first of all, find a great partner, and obviously with BibliU, I think the way that we really view ourselves as being a partner for that transformation and like, where are you today? Where do you want to be? And how do we help you get there? And it's a big part of the reason why we acquired a bookstore management company and as a digital company, so that we can help people walk to that future of digital and be very consultative on how we do that. Piloting is a great place to start for some of these digital programs too. And Ginny, I'm going to take your thunder because I just saw an email come over from one of our campuses, Iowa Western, that started with a pilot. They surveyed students and said, do you think we should expand the use of BibliU? 98% of students in this pilot said, absolutely yes. So I think we know this is the direction we want to go. How do we pilot? How do you work with vendors to make this transition? And those are conversations we love to have with our customers. It's not on off. It's not that easy. We know it's a process. But just wanted to kind of tie everything around because this is really exciting stuff, but sometimes it can be hard to figure out, okay, how do we actually get the ball rolling here?
So Carli, is it can you phase this in over time or?
Totally.
Totally.
Definitely.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah. At Jackson, they started with their general education courses first, and then they expanded it to some of the other more specific disciplines. And I know at Wichita State Tech University in Wichita, Kansas, they did a small pilot in fall of 2021, and then expanded to general education, and then went full bore in about 12 months. Just depends. I think it's like a 6 to 12, maybe 18-month process. But yeah, you could start slow. And I love the idea of where you can pilot. Dual enrollment might be an area as well. Or really the baccalaureate programs could be a good area. You're trying to track their success. You're trying to show the validity of this to your board members and your presidents and all the folks. So I call those on-ramps to BibliU. If driving the entire distance is challenging, find an on-ramp to get going on the highway.
Yeah.
That's what Iowa Western did. They started out, it's one of my accounts. They started out slowly. They use a process for decision-making called shared governance. So it's very methodical, very mindful. They were a bit more cautious, which I appreciate because they really thought through the process before they entered into an agreement with us. We've worked very closely with their project manager and with the president. Lots of conversations, and they started small. And then that was last fall. They've ramped up even bigger. And if anything, they're being, as Carli just said, they're being pushed more to accelerate faster, where they want to be a little slower and more cautious. And the users are like, come on, let's get going. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen for them. But they're a very phased approach, and that's not uncommon.
Yeah. I'm sitting here as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, the next time we do this, I want Carli and John and Ginny and Darren to be talking about these community colleges that have done these baccalaureate programs that have ramped up and done this, just because I know that those adult working students are so motivated. They are making incredible sacrifices. you know, their families are making sacrifices for them to get that bachelor degree that really is going to set that family up for life. You know, it really changes that family's life for the good for generations to come. So that's a challenge out there for all of you community college baccalaureates to at least look into a lot of this. The other thing,
It fits the demographics.
it does fit that demographic. You know, Cheryl and I did our doctorate together. We really needed more of this. We fit the demographic a couple of times. John and Ginny, I think the two of you are coming to our conference. Yes.
Yep.
We're
Bringing
gonna
Carli with us.
Yes. Oh, okay, great. So this year we have, you know, we give scholarships to students. We started off with 2, we've gone to 3. This year, we're not giving 5 scholarships, but we're going to have 5 CCB students with us. One who has also graduated, and then another one who's just coming to the conference. So, you know, I want to offer to you, go talk to those students and, you know, test out your ideas and hear what they have to say about this. I think that would be really interesting to hear their stories and how they struggle, you know, trying to afford textbooks, you know. So that is good. Now, do we have questions from the audience? Or there are other things, Carli and John and Ginny and Darren, we didn't cover?
Can I make a shameless plug?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to ask whoever's doing the slides to advance the slide. Jim Reed, who is the executive director of the Illinois Community College Trustees Association, he and I are doing a breakout session on Thursday of the conference. It's the 15th at 11:20 in the morning, if you look at the slide. And we are going to talk about driving workforce readiness and using affordable and digital solutions in higher ed. And I'm really, really excited about this because we're authoring this content together and really talking about where we've gotten students from and how they're getting equipped to move out into the digital workplace, and what we can do as a BibliU partner with digital content to be able to equip them to become more digital natives so that they are moving out into the workplace and they're equipped properly. So we've got, I think it's a 45-minute session. So please come to our session because we don't want to talk to an empty room, and we would love to have you hear what we have to say. So shameless plug.
Thank you. So those of you from BibliU, how can folks get in touch with you? I know that when you're at the conference, and if you are at the conference, you can just find these good friends of ours.
We have a table.
Yeah, we'll have a booth probably fired up right after breakfast, if not right before breakfast on this Wednesday. Sorry, on the Thursday. I beg your pardon.
No, Wednesday.
The first event is Wednesday. That's right.
Yeah, Wednesday.
So Ginny and I will be there along with Carli. We'll be attending sessions as well, and look for us at various happy hours. I know that we actually have a dinner that we're going to be sending out some invitations to. So for those on the call that have time on, I believe it's Valentine's Day.
Yes, it is Valentine's Day.
Be our Valentine.
Be our Valentine, exactly. We love meeting educators. I told Angela, this is by far, I mean, Ginny and I probably go to 12 to 15 different events a year. This is by far the best community that Angela and Shelley and now Cheryl create. And I've seen so many great presentations by people. So we just love this community and feel lucky to invest in it and see it grow.
That's good. And then, you know, don't forget, you all are sponsoring the happy hour.
There you go.
Sounds like something.
Come be happy.
Wednesday night, and you all are going to be giving some awards to some students, which I think will be great. The students are amazing. When you meet them, you'll say, gosh, what I'm doing is absolutely the right thing.
You know what, can I tell you, your CCBA conference was one of the first conferences I attended when I started working for BibliU. And I was at this conference, and you had a scholarship recipient speak. And it was a gal from the Pacific Northwest. I believe she'd been homeless, and she told her whole story. And I sat at my back table and cried the whole time this young lady spoke. And I went up and talked to her afterwards. And then I texted our marketing team in BibliU and said, we have to give money for scholarships. This makes such a difference. So that for me is the highlight. I can't wait to hear from them.
Oh, it's really great. I think it was last year, the year before, we had another student who was leaving the conference to go
Buy a house.
buy a house. She was signing
Yes.
papers. She had all of her kids at the conference with her.
Yes.
She's getting in the car, driving somewhere. And this was a girl who was living in like a safe shelter. Her husband was abusive. And there she was. She got a Bachelor of Science in biotech analysis.
Which is amazing.
And was going to her new home, signing the papers to buy a new home. So,
And what a role model for her children. See her
what a
Right.
role
be honored there.
yeah, so I think it's great. And yeah, I just want to thank you all. You know, it's not easy to ask a company for funding to help support conferences. And I know you've got lots and lots of people knocking at your door. I know that you do. But just thank you for, you know, at least taking our call. And this year you all have stepped up. You're our premier sponsor. You just have been great. And if you are not registered for the conference, you definitely want to do that. www.accbd.org. Come to the conference. It'll be great. You'll meet great people. And, you know, the first time I went to the conference, I learned so much about community college baccalaureates, came back, and it really made a difference in my programs. So I hope the same goes for you. Well, Carli and John and Ginny, and I know Darren is there and Julia is there. I want to thank you all for being a partner with us, supporting us, and spreading the good word about community college baccalaureates. And we'll spread the good word about what you all do to help our students be successful. So thank you all.
Thank you.